Hello.
Far too many good things to think about beyond that. Except that, Graham, tantalizing first topic of debate, and it's sad to hear this, the decline of the Harrogate local music scene in the last 20 years. And yet,
Yeah.
your visit to see a great new Harrogate supergroup at one of the town's few remaining small live venues. And probably
Yeah, well,
Harrogate's not alone
yeah.
in this situation of a decreasing number of venues. And I think COVID obviously has accelerated that, and it's a consistent worry. But nevertheless, Graham, you've got a new Harrogate supergroup. Now that might seem like a tautology, and actually not a tautology, just an impossibility. The idea that Harrogate could produce a supergroup, but tell
Yeah,
me about it.
well, it's a super group by Harrogate standards, isn't exactly the same
That's
as a super
exactly
group
what you
in the
mean.
1970s. But yeah, and the thing is, Harrogate's got Harrogate Theatre, the Royal Hall, Harrogate Conference Centre, which can all
Yeah,
hold gigs and have held lots of great gigs, but
yeah.
they tend to be not the sort of gigs that you and me go to in general. That they never put on indie bands or
No, they
anything
don't.
alternative. So
No.
you have to exclude those big venues in Harrogate from the music scene. So the live music scene in Harrogate has always been traditionally bars. So when I did most of my reviewing and was doing my
Mm,
charm magazine in the 90s, there was 10 local pubs in Harrogate would put on live music fairly regularly. 10. And there
mm,
was a lot of young Harrogate bands in their teenage years plying their wares around those bars. I mean, there were quite a few covers bands. There was the occasional proper hard rock band playing their own material, but there
mm,
was a lot of young bands playing original material who, although they weren't that professional, were quite original and quite edgy and alternative, and they take drugs in the pine woods and write
mm,
songs and stuff.
mm.
And so it was an interesting time, and then it's sort of like I got involved booking gigs through Charm,
Yeah.
and I made sure it was indie bands and alternative bands. And I tried to create what wasn't in the scene, and
Mm,
lots of bands from Leeds and Manchester and York,
yeah.
and that worked in Harrogate in the early noughties. So then you
Mm,
had DJ Trev would start booking proper hard rock bands, sometimes
mm,
from America. You'd have North Yorkshire hardcore guys who would book punk bands again, sometimes from abroad. So the
mm.
whole music scene in the early noughties was really thriving in Harrogate. Lots of interesting local bands, a couple of which nearly got signed but didn't, and a lot of good nights. And that led to the AMP Awards at the Royal Hall. We
Yeah.
had all the posh schools of Harrogate with their own battle of bands who the winners would then get to play in front of loads of kids and parents
Mm.
in the Royal Hall, which holds 900 people, on the big stage where the Beatles played. And I was one of the judges in the judging panel, and you had to comment live like it was X Factor. So again, that was like a sign of like a healthy Harrogate scene, but in a way it wasn't, because by getting the schools to take it all so seriously, as opposed to like, you know, looking on rock and roll as being like something not good for a child's educational future, which it used to
Yeah.
be a while ago. They all got
No,
really
now it's got to be
professional, and
maths, Graham. Just got to be maths
yeah,
now. Nothing but
yeah, it's
maths.
going to be maths. Yeah, so suddenly the bands were all professional, but all commercial, and the youngsters who replaced the previous bunch of youngsters were much more business minded and a bit less interesting. And I don't know if
Mm.
that led to the line of the live venues, but or whether it was craft beer bars, because craft beer bars, although they do put on acoustic music a bit in Harrogate, do not put on any rock gigs. It's not a craft beer bar thing.
No.
And the crappy pubs that used to put on live music in Harrogate until the noughties, they've all disappeared to make way for bars that I like, which is craft beer bars, which don't put on rock music. So that all those forces have sort of combined to create a situation where you've really only got the blues bar, which does live music 7 nights a week, the good old blues bar.
Yeah.
Although not that many rock bands, a lot of blues, as the name of the bar
Mm.
suggests. The Den, which is a sports bar, which is where I went another week, and Bilton Club, which was the Bilton Workmen's Club, which is a
Oh,
great
yes.
venue, but it's bloody big stage. It's a bloody big venue. And when I
Used to
put
do
a
the best
litany,
pork pies in Harrogate. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But when I put on Litany, the electro pop band from Harrogate, the lead singer of whom has done really well in London, I think I got about 180 people to turn up, and it was swallowed up by the vast nature of the venue. So it's not like the ideal venue for local bands. So there isn't really a place where local rock and alternative bands can play except the Den, which is why I went to see Hellfire Jack, a brutal blues duo who make White Stripes look like Burt Bacharach. And Jaw, the supergroup, because Jaw, a four-piece, had Biz Denton, who was in Cassius, and Cassius toured Britain, nearly got signed, filled the Royal Hall, which holds 900 people, which is pretty good going. And Biz is a really talented, really likable guy. And they got Dan Misen on bass, and Dan's the son of Frank Misen, who was in that great Harrogate band, Wally, who was signed to Atlantic Records in the 70s. And Dan's an amazing producer, and he works with big bands as well as local bands.
Yeah.
And the other two whose names I can't remember, and they were absolutely brilliant live. It was a bit like watching Muse without them sounding like Muse. All that drama and instrumental dynamics, the ebb and flow of the song without being tied to the melody the whole time. And they had like fantastic equipment because Dan's contacts are such in the business that I think he regularly tours as like a sound man for quite well-known bands nationally. So he got like all the best gear. So it was like seeing a stadium band play in this sports bar in Harrogate, and they were exceedingly good, Joe.
It's bands. I'm thinking of venues that have gone. I guess Harrogate Arms would be an example of the kind of venue that has gone, that in its time would play to the heaviest of heavy bands and had a certain atmosphere about it. But is this an inevitability that the idea of you can't really gentrify Harrogate much more than already, otherwise everyone's going to be Sir Lord Toff and Lady Toffetta. But you mentioned that it's easier for a craft pub, beer pub, for example, to have a maybe gentle acoustic couple or something, or very nice. The buskers kind of move indoors for one evening. Why is there, however, a lack of belief that there's still a role for somewhat louder music, rock music? Is that comes down to the NIMBY world? Can't have music in my backyard. And restrictions on the levels of sound. Is that part of the problem?
It's a little bit that. I mean, if you had noise complaints in the 1990s, the chances are that the venue would, put up with the complaints and argue with the council about it. But nowadays, people just don't like to get in trouble. They're much more trouble averse. So you're right, that's part of the problem. Like most of the pubs in Harrogate are near residential areas. I think the other problem is that young people have moved on. They don't in general go to gigs of little local live bands. That's not their thing whatsoever. They're too tied to their lives on the phone. So there's not quite the audience for it. And they also don't drink in Harrogate pubs till after midnight. So when you go to the bar now in Harrogate on a normal night time, you don't see anybody young. Just nobody.
So they'll go for a club experience instead.
No, it's more like, I think they sort of like get together at home and then decide to go out like at midnight. I don't know, because I'm not young. I just hear this from friends talking about their children. So,
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, loads of things have changed. I don't think you couldn't just turn the clock back easily now. Too many things have changed to make the live music scene in Harrogate as good as it was 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
And that's
but it's still alive. It's still going. It hasn't quite died. It may be in life support, but it's still alive.
Are fewer young people taking part in making music, playing music, performing? Is that also taken a downward turn?
Well, I think it's harder to do a band these days because it requires more money and work, and you have to collaborate with people. Whereas young people these days can do their own music in their own bedroom, use the computer.
Yeah.
Or if they want to play a guitar, they'll play acoustic guitar, because then you've only got yourself to worry about, and you can write your own songs and do anything you want. So again, we're not living in a classic band era.
No, it's the Ed Sheeran Topia, isn't it? That's what that is.
Well, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of duplicated in Harrogate as well.
But the whole point of being in a band is being in a band.
Yeah, but people are all individuals these days, don't you know?
Well, isn't that part of the problem? Why are people so bloody selfish?
Well, the advertising that they get all says like you can be what you want to be. It's never about what we want
but
to be.
in life, just as there's got to be bricklayers as well as surgeons, there've got to be bass players and drummers as well as lead guitarists and frontmen. You can't all
Apparently
be
not.
frontmen. We're not all meant to be frontmen.
Well, I think we're living in a world of front men and front women. That sounded wrong.
Front persons.
Yeah, front personages.
Yeah, but there has to still be distinction between those who are good at it and those who aren't.
No, again, that's not right. Everybody's good at everything, don't you know?
No, well, apart from being good at maths, and apparently we've all got to be good at maths now. So
well, that's a real smokescreen. He's only saying that because he can say it without spending any money or actually doing anything. It makes him look like
he happens to be very good at maths, and his wife's even better at maths. But anyway, there we go.
Also, how many jobs require maths? Virtually none.
They just don't add. They don't add up, do they, Graham? They don't add up to a lot. No, they don't.
Well,
he's saying, interestingly, I mean, I think that's for a separate discussion as to actually the real implication behind this is the loss. The knock-on effect is the downturn in the importance of arts, which is as ongoing as the damaging of the NHS at the moment. The arts is being downplayed. We talked about this in the new John Gobber play, Living on Fresh Air, where he's foreseeing a world where the arts is being squeezed out. And actually, you could argue that fewer bands performing is all part of that as well. That there isn't an environment in schools where actually music making is encouraged for groups, and you have to just go and do it on your own in a bedroom.
The only good thing
that's not for the betterment.
University towns still have a live music scene.
Yeah.
The last bastion of young people and guitar bands is students.
Mm. So anyway, it turns out though, Graham, that you did see a jaw-dropping gig, which is good.
Yeah, good gag, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm here all week. Now, I went to a jaw-dropping gig of a different kind. This is the tour by Ryan Adams.
Oh yeah, I thought you said Brian Adams.
Ryan Adams, not Brian Adams. At the start of the second half of the 3-hour show, someone dared to shout out "Summer of '69," and Ryan's reaction. Well, he did actually start playing it, but then he proceeded to construct lyrics somewhat detrimental to the future health of the person who shouted it. And, he threatened to take on any heckler. But it was that kind of gig. You did not know where Ryan was going to go at any moment in the show. And I think something 3 hours, just Ryan, largely on acoustic guitar. He's spread between 3 different guitars.
3 hours on his own?
Yes.
Good grief.
Well, he was 3 hours on his own, but with a gap. We had an interval. And I would point out there were at one point 4 people on stage, all looking at the piano that Ryan, the only time he played the piano, which was he was trying to do a version of not New York, New York, as in Frank Sinatra's New York, New York.
Yeah.
Hell, I Love You, New York, his song. And he found this note that just kept sticking, and he bashed and bashed and bashed and just said, sod it, I'm going to play it on guitar anyway. So it looked like he was going to completely abandon the piano for the night. And actually, when he played on piano, much like when we saw Bob Dylan and in Sheffield, and the first song when we got in, he actually did face the audience briefly, and then spent the rest of the gig, as you recall, facing away from the audience. Well, Ryan had his piano facing, whereas Elton likes to face the audience with the piano in front of him, as it were, or at least to the side on. Ryan was having none of that. He had the piano so that he was facing away from the audience. It wasn't that he was snubbing the audience, but just to give a bit of background on his situation, away from any problems that he's been having in the assertions as to his behaviour, which has led to some trouble for him, shall we say. He suffers from a lot of different conditions now, including he has a deafness problem. He has Meniere's disease, which is a balancing problem. He is, as he calls it, he is an alcoholic. He has suffered from depression problems. His brother died 2 years ago, which sent him back on the sauce for a while. But again, he's coming through that and dealt with his problems. And it was a very emotional gig on many levels. But that made him interesting to watch, because it reminded me of when I went to see Sinead O'Connor, and 2 nights after I saw Sinead O'Connor playing in a Manchester cathedral, where she kept swearing throughout the gig, which was quite an interesting experience in a church. The rest of the tour was called off, and I'm not saying, because actually looking at it, Ryan has played this British tour. Every night's 3 hour set with some variety within it, some cover versions.
Why would he want to play a 3 hour set?
Because I think this is a situation where although he clearly has ailments and there's a health struggle going on for him, and he played therefore in very low light. You could barely see his face.
Really?
Yeah, because all with this problem. So he ruled out any flash photography at all. None. Wasn't allowed. Absolutely adamant about that. And
so
and I think,
was it like a way of not being in the bar for 3 hours?
It's sustained. One, because actually he has got, if you think of how he included, I think maybe one Whiskey Town song from his band days, but he's written many albums. Last year alone he released 4 albums, so he's a prolific songwriter. And one of the things that's interesting is, I think, is that a cover version? No, it just happens to sound like Van Morrison. Oh, is that a Bob Dylan song? No, it just happens to sound like Bob Dylan, but he makes them individual enough within his own songwriting to have an element of, the classical songwriters. That's
Charles,
what's there.
I would argue that even though he's a talented chap, the only 3 hour sets I've ever seen are U2, Paul McCartney, and Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
All of whom I would suggest are better than Ryan Adams. So I'm quite surprised that he's playing such a lengthy set.
There was plenty of life in Ryan to do it.
Mm-hmm.
For all the fact that he had, some emotional levels of discomfort with himself, it made him a magnetic performer within the show. He's also witty, unpredictable in what he's going to say, and I take your point, but he does have some cover versions within it. And the only time he returned to the piano, for example, during the second set, he did a version of Tracks of My Tears, which was stunning. I mean, absolutely beautiful version of that wonderful Smokey Robinson song. And he's just released a series of Oasis cover versions, for example. On top of the album, we all know he did the Taylor Swift album, of course. He did. He's done Nebraska by Springsteen, and he's done one other complete album. And damn it all, I'm now going to forget who it's by. So there's material that he can draw on as well as his own. And there was a moment where he spotted someone was using the phone, and it could have gone either way with him. He could have, he weren't quite sure how he's going to react. What he ended up doing was asking the chap why he was filming it. Why are you filming? And he said, "For my wife who can't be here." And he thought, okay, so what's he going to do next?
Good reply.
What he ended up doing is he got this chap to come up on stage and film him playing a song, with the audience cheering to lead into the song, then giving the song, dedicating it to Pauline, this chap's partner, and then at the end, again, repeating Pauline's name several times and dedicating the song to it. And that again is something, I mean, I don't know how often that kind of thing happens in the gig. Maybe Bono might do something like that. He used to do his phone calls in the show, didn't he? So phone calls to
but only to world leaders. This is Bono. He's not going to just dedicate a song to your wife. It's going to be like
he'll be too busy on the phone to Mandela or whatever. But
yeah, exactly.
But again, I thought it was, that was something unexpected, and it actually worked within the context of the show.
I'm beginning to think that Ryan Adams is actually better live than he's on record.
I would 100% agree with that, and that's interesting. And that is just with acoustic guitar and very occasional piano, as it turned out. The other thing that he did that I've looked through the set list on Setlist FM for all the other shows. He hasn't done an improvised song on all the nights, but he has done on some. So after New York, New York, he did a song about York.
Oh yeah,
and he talked about himself being the natural Old York in York. So the lyrics were completely improvised. The tune improvised. There was wit again within it, and unpredictability is what he was going to say. But he'd spent the day before in York, so he commented on the statue of Constantine and the city of York and how beautiful it was. He did describe it as a gig. He said he was expecting it to be boring yet beautiful because of York,
Oh
And
yeah.
then said he said that, however, it's turned out to be one of the kind of weirdest gigs he's ever played, but one that therefore he really, really enjoyed. So I think it's one of those things where he's
Yeah,
in the moment.
yeah, but
He's
you know
not
what
sure
York's
how it's
like.
going to go. He's not sure how
York's
he's going to behave, but it made it on the edge as a performance, and I really therefore enjoyed it because I
But
think,
York's quite a deceptive place. It looks
yeah,
historical. It
yeah,
is historic, but it's not
yeah.
a middle class town. It's a
Far
bit
from it.
slightly Wild Westy.
It's a town of not hidden at all, working class industrial roots. That for all
Hmm.
for all the gentrification and middle classing that's going on in Harrogate, and in York, and I speak obviously as one of those. It's a city that its roots likes to play true to its much more basic traditions and what it loves, and it's always loved. The York's always loved concerts, always loved comedy, always loved performances, always bonded with that. And I think the atmosphere at York gigs is always fantastic because of it. Comedians will always say that they love playing York because they get a fantastic reaction, and
Mm-mm.
and at rock concerts as well. Again, performers love playing in the city because they get something back from an audience, and he very much was getting that from the audience in York.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like playing a gigantic workmen's club from the 1970s.
the wheel tappers and shunters of York.
Yeah,
I mean, I think to sit with a quiet, stony, silent audience is no good for anybody. And they're not
that's more
frightened.
like Harrogate.
They're not frightened to shout out for things. I mean,
Mm.
one woman did shout out for a song, and he thought, oh, was it, who was how was he going to react to that? And he wasn't going to play it at first, not because she'd suggested it. Then he said, but he said she sounded cool. He said, so I'm going to play
Mm.
it. So he did. And again, I like the fact that the audience even chanced a little bit of something, weren't sure again how the reaction would come, but actually that added to the gig again, and that's where the audience is so important. That's why I still love going to gigs, because much as I enjoy listening to the radio and much as I enjoy listening to albums, the live music experience is like no other. When it goes well, it's transcendent. It takes you somewhere else, and
It's the
that
whole thing
right.
is it's not just about the music. It goes way
No.
beyond that. I very rarely see versions of songs live that are better than the record.
Mm,
Occasionally, but in general, not. But isn't the gig isn't about
no.
hearing the best version
No,
of a
it's
particular
not.
song you love. It's about it's like how they look, how they act, how the crowd acts, the atmosphere. It's just great. But anyway, I was
And,
thinking, Charles,
mm,
I was thinking that just because Ryan Adams did a 3 hour set does not mean to say we need to review him for 3 hours.
no, I think we've done enough on Ryan Adams. I just say thank you, Ryan, for a really memorable night. And I don't think things are easy for him at all. And I think it's quite a
He
thing for
does
him to
well
be
for a
doing
man
these
with so
shows
many
at the moment.
problems.
And so good on him for that.
Mm, I agree.
Now, Graham, I feel it's time for the first interruption of the night.
Guess what I saw last night?
You saw a film.
Oh, you do.
I don't know which film.
It was, in fact, a new documentary about King Crimson, the
Oh, I
legendary.
should have
But
known because you mentioned you were going to go. Now, so who's made the documentary and why is it being made?
well, it's the 50th anniversary of the formation of the band by Robert
Yes.
Fripp, the ever-changing lineup, the ordinary, hard-working, very demanding Robert Fripp. And the
Yeah.
film was called In the Court of the Crimson King, and it was made by Toby Amis, who I believe was actually a neighbour of Robert Fripp's, and
Ah,
got chatting to him and suggested making a film about him to coincide with the 50th anniversary. And
yeah.
so eventually hard to please Robert Fripp said yes. And from the film that's come out, he must have filmed like hours and hours and hours. You can tell that he's just filmed everything.
Yeah.
And he's then gone back and cherry picked only the most interesting, important bits of all the footage. So he must have spent a long time editing it. And the end result is a fantastic film. You really learn a lot, and
Mm.
it's really entertaining considering that a lot of King Crimson's music's quite hard to listen to. It makes
Exactly.
for a very entertaining film.
I mean, that's because I think King Crimson are quite hard going. And also, I mean, apart from Fripp, I don't really know much personality wise with them. And so not saying they're not obvious for a documentary. In some ways, actually, they're therefore an interesting subject for a documentary because there's a story to be told that probably isn't that well known.
That's true, and a lot of the former members, or even current members of King Crimson, contribute a lot to some of the best albums by Talking Heads, David Bowie, and other figures that still get taken really seriously. So there's a crossover between the cult world of King Crimson and the mainstream world that everybody still loves to listen to and loves to write about and talk about. So it's totally worth watching. And the only funny thing is that it's quite a generous film towards the band members. It just focuses on Robert Fripp himself. And then the film, you feel like you've learned a lot about all the band members, but you don't seem to learn that much about Robert Fripp. And you can't tell if Robert Fripp is taking the mickey because he's almost like panto villain in his own band, and he's not that nice. But you sort of think, like, is he really like that, or is this like the persona he's got? Because
haven't Tori Wilcox rather shown another side to him though with their Sunday lunchtime songs?
Yeah, you can't imagine that if Toy put up with Robert Fripp, if really was as much of a pain in the ass as he comes across in the band itself. I'm sure she would have turfed him out a long time ago. So yeah, I think he's mellowed and he's now playing a role which suits him and suits everybody else.
Absolutely. So, Graham, does it though make you want to go and revisit or go to the court of the King Crimson and spend some time there?
Oh, well, the band live tries to achieve unexpected moments of transcendence. That's their aim. They're not there to reproduce the songs and the albums. They try to create a unique experience, but it's a unique experience of moments. So even though I loved the film and it made me want to buy some King Crimson albums, I know that they are a band of moments. So you might have to listen to 10 minutes to a track to get 1 minute of absolute genius. And I'm not sure I've got the patience to be doing that. So I feel like I should get some King Crimson albums, but whether I do, I don't know.
Do they ever have a radio hit?
I don't think so. I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's obscure to some extent. They're a kind of music magazine's favourite, aren't they?
A bit, but the first album was a big hit in the court of King Crimson because of that song, 21st Century Schizoid Man.
Yes.
And then they've been successful in America on and off over the years. And they are worldwide successful because the live footage is from gigs all around the world. And people love King Crimson in every part of the globe. So for a cult band, they're surprisingly successful.
And have been for actually 50 years now.
And very influential. There's bits of Sonic Youth in some of their 1980s music. Only bits, but you can hear other bands in slightly unlistenable King Crimson tracks throughout their whole career.
So there's King Crimson. From that, we move to one of our favourite subjects, Chinese artist Wei Wei, who, as we know, has moved, having had a conversation with Chalmers, thought, that's it, I'm off to Portugal, don't know how to talk to him again. And so there he is in Portugal, but you've been reading his book, the memoir. And of course, he's actually got a new exhibition at the Design Museum in London, which I don't know if you've been to yet or whether you're planning to go, but certainly it's on my list to go to it. So where do you stand on him right now?
It's Monet's water lilies reproduced in Lego bricks.
Yeah.
Which is a funny idea, although I'd rather see Monet's water lilies for real than see a Lego version of it, quite frankly. But
that's what I want, Monet. That's what I want, Monet.
Yeah. He's an interesting artist, but having read the book now, 1,000 Years of Joys and Sorrows, which is a very, very good book, you learn a lot about him, a lot about being an artist, an awful lot about China's history and what it's like to be in a dictatorship. But when I met him briefly a year ago at Kettle's Yard in Cambridge, in what must have been his farewell show, really, before he was setting off, and it was called Liberty of Doubt, and it was like a sort of greatest hits from throughout his career, including some of his documentaries. He's made a lot of documentaries, usually political in nature, usually about China itself, but sometimes about the migrant crisis in Europe. But when I met him, I said, are you moving to Portugal? And he said, well, I'm just back from Lisbon. But then he paused and said, "But my son's at school in Cambridge," which indeed he is. But at the time, he was actually starting to build his studio in just outside Lisbon, an exact replica of his studio in Shanghai, which the Chinese authorities bulldozed overnight in 2011 when they decided they had enough of his meddling in politics in China. But as soon as I heard that he was building a studio in outside Lisbon, I knew he'd be moving out of Britain because he's lived in Cambridge area for about 6 years, 7 years since he left China in 2015. I knew he'd be moving because, like, wherever he lays his studio, that's his home. He's never going to live in one country, have his studio somewhere else. So his move is inevitable. So it was quite interesting to hear that he had the Exhibition Design Museum, because I thought the Kettle's Yard exhibition last year was his farewell to Britain, but clearly not. Clearly, I think he likes Britain. He hasn't completely lost it. He's not going to lose the ties to Britain. I think those are main part because he's son, partly because
I don't want to suggest
Britain an interesting
I don't want to
country.
suggest that Portugal's a cultural backwater, but Portugal's a cultural backwater. Why has he gone there?
Well, he likes to be comfortable. He did try to live in Berlin after he became an exile from China, but
that's much more what you'd expect. That's much more what you'd expect.
I don't know. He's a bit of a non-pretentious guy, even though he's into conceptual art. He's into like found objects and very modern artist. So a modern pop artist, really, very of the current era, and the sort of art that's dominated Western art for the last 25, 30 years. He's also a bit of he's definitely non-conformist. He makes no effort to fit in. He's lived his life not fitting in because his dad tried to fit in, ended up getting sent to exile several times.
Still got jailed. Yeah.
So he knows that in China, if you try to be individual and creative, you're going to get in trouble. So as a result, he's never tried to fit in. He's got no intention of doing so. So I can imagine Berlin being cool as hell. He wouldn't really like that. He's not really a cool guy. He's a very honest, open artist, and all his art is personal, even when it's political. So I can't imagine him fitting into a cool scene. He doesn't even like other artists. Like he was let down by the Chinese art fraternity because he was really big in China when they were becoming a bit more liberal and capitalist. But then, so he was really well known in China and won awards. But then when the regime started to tighten things up, all the other arts organizations that he was part of, and people he was sort of friends with in the art fraternity, once the state got a bit heavy, they all, he was like persona non grata in his own folk. So no, he's not really a team player because it's very hard to be a team player in China unless you say the word yes the whole time.
No, and I think a bulldozing of your studio is a pretty strong statement on any levels to erase you just like that. Well, maybe all I'm thinking is I wonder how Portugal will influence the work.
Well, it's one of the few countries I've not been to in Europe, and it always strikes me somewhere it's probably sort of a mix of passion and being relaxed.
Yeah.
So it might bring out something new in him. You never know.
The passion of the fado music. Yeah, I could see that.
It probably will affect his art in some way, but I couldn't hazard a guess as to how.
Well, if either of us gets down to the Design Museum in London, we might do a little perspective on that, see how that goes. Now, I feel there's just enough time, Graham, with 2 minutes, 20 seconds to go for a final interruption, if you would.
Well, yeah, King Charles's coronation in a few weeks' time. They've got the concert at Windsor on the Sunday, the day after he gets crowned king at Westminster Abbey. And the lineup so far is blooming Take That, Kate Perry, Lionel Richie, and Andrea Bocelli. And I'm thinking like, oh, that's a second-rate coronation followed by a second-rate gig.
Graham, I'm not going to argue. Take that. No, thank you.
I quite like Charles as a person, but I'm not sure I know he was made to be king, but I'm not sure he actually is made to be king. So I don't know. It's a bit.
So that's no comparison with the 2012 Olympic Games, is it? To put it mildly.
That was genuinely interesting and a bit weird on the edges. But
Danny Boyle's great statement of 11 years ago now.
Can you imagine if Danny Boyle was given the job of organising the coronation? That'd be
well. This is what I mean. It's a missed opportunity to do something much more interesting. Last year, in topping the bill, Diana Ross absolutely past her prime. putting it mildly. A dreadful performance. And an American's headlining shows. I don't get it. It's a British coronation. I don't understand that. And what was it? What was the face? Singing the song about New York. Alicia Keys.
The only good thing about
what's the point of that? We're in London. What on earth was the point of that?
I agree, but the only good thing about the Windsor concert coming up is there's no Cliff Richard so far, and that's very good news.
No Cliff Richard, no cliffhanger. Well, I can't believe that. Missed opportunity, Graham. Well, I can tell you won't be standing amongst the crowds then in Windsor.
I won't watch on TV either.
No, well, I certainly won't be there. It's a lose-lose rather than a win-win situation, seems to me.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and